friends, welcome to another episode of Killingly Public Library's craft videos. Today we're going to make a fall gnome, and I'm starting with a tin can, and I just happened to paint mine orange. I did it ahead of the video because honestly my recording device was not charged when I went to make my video, so I did a lot of prep work on this one. Sorry, but I think you know how to paint a can. You probably don't need to watch me do that. I put 2 coats of orange paint on. You use whatever color you have at home that you can paint your can. It doesn't have to be fall if you want your gnome to fit into another season. And then I put a coat of Mod Podge on the paint once it was dry, just to keep it from chipping away. And next we want to measure around the can. I'm just using a piece of raffia that I'm going to use later in the project, and I'm just going to measure around the can just to get an idea for the hat and measure that. And I have just a little over 8 inches for my can. So then you want to create a template for your hat. Now I probably could have gone a little wider than I did. I would have probably liked another ½ an inch, but I didn't. The piece of denim I had to work with wouldn't have accommodated that, so we're making it work. So to make your template, make a triangle, and the bottom line should be at least an inch, preferably an inch and a half across whatever the width of your can was. So my can was just a little over 8 inches. The right across the bottom here on my is just a little over 9, almost 9.5. So I technically would have preferred 10 inches, but that's not what I had to work with. And then you can make the height of your hat whatever you like. And I don't know if you can see, but I do have a line across here that I drew, and I made then the other 2 sides. And then when I trimmed it, I just kind of arched it a little bit, and I did draw that out on the paper before cutting it, but you know, you can work it however you like. If maybe you've got a really good eye, you don't need a pattern. Then the next step I did was I brushed my denim with Mod Podge. It stiffened the denim, but it also kept the denim from fraying when I cut it to be the size of my template. So I've already Mod Podged it and cut it out, and you can see it's not fraying. It's play with it all I want. And so we're going to use this denim for our hat, for our gnome. And I am going to just, sometimes I've stapled when I've made gnome hats, but I think today I'm going to hot glue it to be sure that it's secure. I'm not sure if the staple would go through the denim really well. If you've ever sewed with denim, you can sympathize there. It's a really tough fabric to go through, and now having coated it with Mod Podge, it's really stiff. So I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and glue it down as close to the edge as I can, because I did not give myself a lot of wiggle room with my hat. If you have more wiggle room with your hat, then that is great, but I don't have a lot here to work with. There's my hats glued, and once your glue is good and set and not warm and soft anymore, you can turn your hat. All right, my hat is turned and it does fit on my can like so. And I will glue it down, but first I want to attach the beard. Now for the beard, I wanted to use raffia because it just seemed very fall-like to me, and it would be kind of, I don't know, kind of a neat twist on a gnome, something I haven't done in a video in the past. I started by taking a strip of paper, and this paper is about 3/8 of an inch wide and 4.25 inches long. And I folded it kind of into thirds. It doesn't have to be exact, but you can kind of fold it into thirds like so. So it's something like that. And on the middle piece here, the inside piece in the middle, I'm going to glue down some raffia. And what I did was just took the glue stick and rubbed it on that middle piece of paper, and I began, first I decided, okay, I want my raffia about so long, so I trimmed it and I glued the piece down and continued to fill that middle section with little bits of raffia the same length. And then when that was full, I put another layer on top of that as best I could. I, ran some more glue on it and added another layer, so it's 2 layers. And then I folded one of these edges over the top, glued the top of that paper again, and filled it another time, and then glued over the third piece. So I ended up with, and I did it twice, so I ended up, they look like little wisp brooms almost, don't they? But you can see that's about how wide they are, and I thought I would be able to just stick them side by side on my can to make my beard. So we're gonna glue that down and then we can attach the hat. Oh, and also after the glue was dry and I had all of these parts here, I took my raffia and I peeled it apart to make my my beard very, very frizzy, very fluffy. And I just kept peeling as many pieces as I could get from a strip. And I felt that it was much easier to attach larger pieces if I had them. Sometimes when I pulled the raffia out of the package, I got skinny strips like this, and I did attach them to my paper just the same. But the fatter strips were much easier to attach to the paper and then later peel apart to fluff out the beard. Also, I had some little pieces that I just kind of glued into the middle because they kind of, I don't know, they fell out, like a little piece like this or something, and I'd just stick some glue on the end of it and just stick it in there and hope it sticks. Maybe it won't, maybe it will, we'll see. I am going to use this side of my can because there's some glue here where the label was and it wouldn't come off, but who cares? I've got to cover the can up with the beard anyway, so that's where he's gonna have his beard, right there. And I'm using hot glue for the beard. I just used a glue stick for the raffia and the paper, but you could certainly use hot glue if you wanted. I just didn't want to burn my fingers. So the choice for me was the glue stick, and it worked fine. Oh, and also, after I peeled the raffia, I just kind of was squishing with it and fluffing it and playing with it because it does kind of goes anywhere it wants to, and just kind of molded it to how I would like. So you can certainly do that as well. And I think that's it. I don't think I forgot anything else. So that's one piece on. And two pieces. And if you need to trim anything, go ahead and trim. I kind of did enough trimming ahead of time. And if you're just using this and you're not worried about it's tipping or anything, then leave it as it is. But if you're concerned about it falling or tipping or anything of that sort, you could always weight your can down. I'm not weighting mine down. He's just going to sit on my shelf and not be bothered. I don't have anybody running around in my office. So we're just going to take and go ahead and glue the hat a little bit. I'm just going to put a little glue here to kind of hold the hat in place. Just on the front of the beard. I think that will be good enough. Up by the lip of the can. So I just ran some glue right there and I can stick his hat on. And if you want, you can certainly run some glue in the back and make sure the hat is stuck at the back as well. And then I just have a wooden bead. I'm going to glue it on. I'm just going to kind of stick it like so right onto his beard. And there's my fall gnome. You could certainly go farther with this project and decorate his hat if you wanted, you know, maybe a sunflower or something along those lines. But this was what I came up with, just something quick and easy, and just cut up an old pair of pants. You know, you've seen me cut up pants before in some of my videos. So it could possibly be the same pair I've been cutting from. I don't remember. It was just a scrap I had left kicking around the office. So there you have it, our fall gnome. Just some things that I had laying around the office. I had raffia from a past project. Maybe you have some too. If you don't have raffia, you could try some other things for a beard. You could certainly use fur, you could use yarn. What about even just cutting up some paper? Or what about if you've got a field nearby, just cut up some hay, some grass. Go out there with your scissors and get some dead grass. That would be great too. And then if you don't have an old pair of pants around the house to cut up denim with, you know, you could make a hat out of any scrap of fabric. And if you put the Mod Podge on, it will keep it from fraying. And if you don't have a bead for a nose, what about taking an old nylon stocking and stuffing it with a cotton ball, and you can put, you know, snug it, pull it around, and glue that on, you know, tie, you know, kind of tie it off in the back where you're not going to see it, and just pop it on. So all kinds of different things you could use if you don't have the same things that I created with. So thank you so much for stopping in today and watching our craft video. I would love to see your finished projects. If you would share them with me at info@killinglypl.org, that would be wonderful. And until the next video, I'll catch you later.